Okay? So this is highly shady business going on, in my opinion. The promoters are not doing adequate testing. And in particular, I'll tell you who the worst are, is Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and Al Heyman and PBC. Here's what I learned. The promoter can go to them, and just like a menu in a restaurant, where VADA orders everything on the menu, all prohibited substances at all times. The promoter can say, I want to do these little panel tests here, but not others. And then when the results come back, I don't want anybody to get those results. Just send them to the promoter exclusively. No commission, no sanctioning body. And if the promoter decides to show these results, well, maybe they do and maybe they don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, members of the Roll the Tape film crew. Now, that was the voice of Victor Conti. He is the owner of the snack program. And he basically talked about what happens behind the scenes with promoters. His words, not mine. And the worst of those promoters are Eddie Hearn from Matchroom and Al Heyman from PBC. Those were the words of Victor Conti. And y'all heard what he said. And so now we have to deal with what's real. Because if this is true, boxing just has to get better when it comes to Olympic-style random blood and urine testing 365 days out of the year, 24 hours of the day, and 7 days a week. Now, based on the observation and the knowledge that Mr. Conti himself admitted to learning, I have a question or two. My question is, if this is the case, especially with PBC, since we had the biggest, most anticipated fight of the year, besides Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, and I'm referring to Terrence Bud Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. Was there VADA testing in this fight? Now, we know that Victor Conti tweeted that it was, but we have yet to know if that information was or was not confirmed. Was there VADA testing in the fight between Crawford versus Spence? Now, if it was VADA testing, and Victor Conti is saying, like y'all just heard him say, that there are promoters such as Al Heyman, called him the worst, by the way, of PBC, that tells the agencies that test their athletes to send the results to them. And on top of that, that VADA has a 65 panel of all of the list of the banned substances they test for, and the other agencies do not. If that is the case, then we must ask the question, number one is, was there VADA testing in this fight? And number two, what were the results? And number three, if it wasn't VADA testing and there was another agency, when I mean agency, I mean a doping agency that administers these tests to ensure the safety of all of the competitors in the ring. What was the name of the agency and what were the testing results for Spence versus Crawford? We need to know, because boxing cannot and should not turn a blind eye to what Victor Conti's saying is happening in this sport. Cannot turn a blind eye, y'all. If Victor Conti is right, and he sounds like he is, And when I say it sounds like he's right, I am not referring to Eddie Hearn and or Al Heyman. I'm saying what he's learned about the procedures that promoters pre-agree with the agencies on when it comes to the testing and the results of the test. We got to make sure that all fighters competing in that ring are safe, and we have to make sure that all fighters competing in that ring are clean. And when I mean clean, I'm not talking about with a soap and rag. I'm talking about not using and or abusing banned substances. Okay? So we have to deal with this. We cannot turn a blind eye in our sport. We cannot turn a blind eye in our business. And so Victor Conte is exposing what's going on behind closed doors. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, and neither do most of you. But the thing about it is that some people will question what Victor Conte is saying because of his reputation in the business, because of his reputation in the sport. So he lacks credibility in the minds of some people. But he is also a credible source in the minds of other people because of his history, because of his experience, because of his reputation, because of his investing in the resources to advance VADA's testing protocols. And on top of that, as we know, he's still the owner of the snack program. And so we have to find balance in this. We don't know. But what we do know, unfortunately, that PEDs and other banned substances are running rampant in the sport of boxing. And we must clean it up immediately. And if this is true of what Victor Conte is saying, then we have to deal with what's real. Now, whatever agreements that a promoter make with the doping agencies, it's between those two parties, especially when the promoter is cutting the check to test the athletes. So we can't get in the business of somebody else's business. Got to mind our own businesses. Okay? With that being said, though, outside of the promoters having the deal to be able to receive the testing results, we have to recognize that the promoters also have an obligation, just as well as the doping agencies, that when an athlete tests positive for a PED and or a banned substance, that full transparency must be taken in consideration. And those test results must be revealed to the boxing public, to the media, to social media, and to obviously the other parties that are involved. We need to clean the sport of boxing up. And it is what it is. And it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm Manager Marty, the most controversial and hottest manager on YouTube.